Welcome to the kbbreview podcast. I'm Andy Davies, and I'm currently walking through central London on the way to Charing Cross Station to catch my train home after an amazing day, taking part in the first kbbreview retail safari. If I've got my editing right, which I frequently don't, this is part 2 of our podcast report from today. So if you haven't heard part 1, I strongly suggest going back and listening to that. Otherwise, a lot of this won't make the slightest bit of sense. So what is a retail safari? Well, it's a walking tour of central London with an expert, looking at fantastic examples of retail showrooms, concepts, creative ideas and experiences. So today we've done just that with a group of independent kitchen and bathroom retailers. And back in part 1, you'll hear the running commentary from the tour itself with me and kbbreview editor-at-large Rebecca Nottingham, as well as the thoughts and takeaways from some of the retailers. And in this episode you'll hear from the rest of our retailers, as well as our retail expert and guide for the day, Ian Scott. You'll also hear from Hetit UK Managing Director Simeon Gabriel. He was also on the tour, and his perspective on innovative retail as a major supplier is really worth hearing. It's really interesting. This whole endeavour has been supported by Hetit UK, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without them. So also here a very public thank you to them for that help. If you want to find out more about Hetit, then you can find the link in the notes for this episode. So we'll start by handing over to Rebecca Nottingham and the rest of our retailers.
I'm Graham Robinson from Housing Interiors in Wigmore Street.
Kenny Luck from Luck & Fuller Bath and Design Studio.
Tamana Vitskiene from Kuchak House in Potters Bar and Fellingarden City.
Thanks so much for joining us for the first ever kbbreview retailer safari in association with Hetit. Good place to start would be your reflections on today. You know, what were your thoughts of the shops that we went to, what you saw?
Overriding, I think the idea that physical retail is still important and still valued was really good, but like the way that you look at retail, I think the lady from Nike said old retail is dead, boring retail is not. Get a bit of inspiration for retail as a physical thing, not just online. And the shops we went to is a massive spectrum, but the way they were displaying things, the way that they're tapping into senses, the way that people are interacting with us, lots of interesting things to discover.
I think the biggest thing I've taken away is there's no one correct way of doing it, and I think everyone will make mistakes. We went to Gymshark and they made a lot of mistakes at the start and then rectified those as they went along to create a better user experience. But the biggest thing I'll take away is the quality of the people and just how interactive they were and engaging, and that's something that I think every retail outlet can learn from and improve on.
I agree. I think your colleagues, your staff are the key in a business. You know, we need to be passionate. We need to love what we do. We need to be really professional, and we need to look after people. So everything is through personality and senses.
For me, it was this reminder of how important the showroom experience is. And obviously, we deliberately didn't take you to any kitchen and bathroom showrooms took you outside of your comfort zone to give you that kind of look to see, observing really how other industries retail. What showrooms really stood out for you and why?
My favourite bit was the perfumery shop we went to, designed by House of Grey, because it just had a really calm feel. It was all about the product, but nothing jarred, nothing sort of insulted you. It was just really calm and nice and soft and inviting. And again, the staff in there were really lovely.
Yeah, and really helpful and really engaged, I think, actually, were, because they were really understood the brand, the story, and how to get that across. Kenny, what about you?
I think it'd probably be Liberty for me. It reminded me of a classic old school environment where they really utilised the original decor features of the building, and they've really tried to make that the feature. Liberty for me is more of a lifestyle destination shop where you go there for a specific reason, rather than, say, a Uniqlo or a Gymshark where grab a new T-shirt or whatever it might be. It seems to be more of a destination. And I think those destination-based showrooms need to provide a lot more of an experience and a reason to go there, rather than pushing people online like other department stores are doing.
Yeah, Liberty's very much so. Yeah, you're right. Again, as you walk through, you walk through the florist section, which just sets you up for the visit, doesn't it? Because it's just beautiful smelling flowers, really pretty, and it just makes you want to enter.
For me, it was interesting. I really liked Lush store, which in the town I lived before, we had it, but I never went inside because they thought it's more for the children, it will be a bit overwhelming and so on. But it caught me that people who worked over there being so personal, especially that lady who introduced to all the products and so on, but I didn't want to leave. I wanted to buy more and more what she showed. And again, everything, fresh flowers, Bridgerton experience and all those senses. It was really interesting.
Yeah. Taking Lush as an example then, because that was a very immersive experience today, wasn't it? What can you take from that experience and use in your own showroom? What principles from that experience can you take?
It's almost a psychological stuff, touch and feel everything, yeah? So in a kitchen, I cannot use bath bombs or massage oils and so on, but I could let people to cook on our kitchens. They can smell the food, they can taste the food, and they will have a personal experience which they will not get anywhere else. So we can use it in different way.
So it's understanding the differences. You can't replicate it exactly, but principles that you can take away from it. Kenny, what about you?
Something that I was quite surprised about is just how colour coordinated everything is. It always seems to be going on a spectrum from red down to purple to blue to green to yellow. And that's something that we can do a lot better with our furniture samples and tile samples at the back of our showroom. We could make it a lot more inviting by just coordinating that a little bit better. One thing that we struggle with when it comes to customers, I don't know what colour I want. Okay, well, at the moment our show is a little bit higgledy-piggledy with the colouring. I think that can probably be improved. And also, we talked earlier about the rule of three, where you have a set of three, then a set of three, then a set of three. I think that would be a much better way to showcase some of our samples than what we're currently doing at the moment. And I think that was quite evident within a lot of the retail that we went to, especially Nike as an example, where they really started breaking down their footwear displays to showcase less, but draws your attention more.
Something that you touched on that Liberty did as well, which was really interesting, was they've grouped lots of scents, smells together in that same, so that you've got the florals, you've got the musks, and that actually helps then the consumer with the choice. Because again, in the kitchen and bathroom world, there is a lot of choice. And particularly for the people buying kitchens and bathrooms, most of them haven't ever done it before or have only ever done it once 10, 20 years ago. So those kind of principles take on board, and actually less can be more.
Grouping those, like I mentioned about the colours, by grouping the colours, we want a pink, for example, we can go to the pink section and we can start focusing down on what kind of tone they're looking for within that colour.
You're doing the editing for the customer to help them narrow. There's so much choice, so you're helping by editing and displaying an edit of something. You're tailoring the offer so it makes it easier for the client. So a lot of things we saw today were about making it easier for the client to choose something, whether it be a bath bomb or a kitchen. And maybe we get a bit distracted by the brand of the stone or the brand of the kitchen, where actually the customer might not be so interested in the brand. We are, because that's how we maybe keep them tidy, but they're choosing a colour rather than maybe a brand. So looking at it in that way rather than brand. And that's why the fragrance thing worked, because it was like maybe 6 brands of fragrance grouped by the smell, not by the brand of the fragrance. So I think that's why that works so well.
Yeah, because if you're into floral scents, you'd go straight over there, but actually you might end up taking away a scent that you've never had before because it just happens to be in that group though.
Yes, exactly.
One of the most important things I think for today was that we took you outside of your comfort zone. So how important is it then looking at how retail in different sectors design their showrooms and experiences?
But I think it's crucial, to see everything is about user experience. And it almost doesn't matter what kind of store, what kind of product, but how people engage with you and how you feel in particular store. We visited lots of different brands and different products, but almost we felt the same in every single one. We felt we want to stay, we are looked after. Graham?
I think it's quite a good way of looking at things. I think it's also good to look at restaurants and hotels as well for maybe inspiration and service. So it's not just other retail, but I think it's good that we took it out of kitchen retail because it would have been too obvious to take us to a load of kitchen shops. And I think it's just a more of a neutral ground, and then it opens up conversations. So between people on the trip, so every spoken to everyone, it's just a nicer way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, the idea of today is to take you out of the norm. You can be in your own bubble for a day in, day out, and actually probably you gain more from going into different places than going to competitors or other kitchen and bathroom showrooms. Kenny, what are your thoughts?
The best thing that I've kind of taken away from today is it doesn't matter what style of business it is, every business has their story, but everyone wants to present it in a certain way. And the showroom environment is how you portray your story. Whether that be Arquette, which we just kind of briefly walked past, where everything is plain grey and it makes the product sing, or whether it's something like Lush, which is a very, very small amount of product, but puts in a setting that tells that story, whichever way it might be, is you've always got that hero, and it's about your showroom is about trying to make that part sing. And that's your story, what you're trying to get across to your customer within your retail space. And the people that did that the best that I thought were the people who were the most engaging.
It's something we touched on earlier, actually, when we were having a chat, and it feeds into your conversation then, where you said, you want to feel like you can go back there, you want to feel comfortable there and inviting. And that feeds nicely into the conversation we had about the next appointment, them coming back. It's the longevity of that.
It's just, maybe for a Lush, you're going to sell a bath bomb on the first visit, but with a kitchen, the idea of you're not selling a kitchen, you're selling the next appointment, so that you're building that relationship. So that's, I think that if you had to have one line from today, it would be you're selling the next appointment.
Yeah, and I think that's really key, but it kind of feeds into exactly what you were saying. If you make people feel comfortable, that is exactly how you're going to get people to come out.
You're sort of like engaging them in some sort of relationship, which is going to ultimately result in them buying a kitchen or bathroom.
Yeah. Anything that you've taken from today that means that you're going to make any changes to the showroom? Maybe not in the short term.
I think definitely I'm going to look at the way we display samples. I think we haven't got the biggest showroom. We have kind of 15 relatively moderate sized displays, and we can only show so many things. So we have a very uncluttered, very airy showroom. I think the way that we are presenting additional products through samples can definitely be improved. It can definitely become more appealing, like the Lush and like the fragrance store that we went to, where they're organised in a way that does want people to come touch and feel. I think that's something that we could definitely improve on. And I think we could definitely make that area of our showroom more appealing, so people feel that they can touch and feel, rather than they think that, I'm going to mess up.
Can't touch that.
Yeah, I can't touch that. I'm going to mess up the display, whatever it might be. So I want people to be able to touch and feel and play with the samples we have. And I think by arranging them better, that would work.
Okay, interesting. Toma, any takeaways from today that you think, actually, I think we need to change that in our showrooms?
It is really difficult for me to say because we opened first one 2 years ago and second one just 2 months ago. So between those 2 years, I changed quite a lot the way showroom looks, second showroom, the way we engage with the customers and so on. And at the moment, everything is really fresh. We got smells, we do networking events, we got cozy areas for children. It's like a family hub. I think what we will do more, as I mentioned for you before, we will cook more in the showroom. If it's a lunchtime, we'll have bread cooking when people can feel like we're at home. If it's a breakfast time, we can even do scrambled eggs. And so when we can experience our products and feel like we are at home and we are all like part of a family.
Yeah.
I would say maybe looking at our window space, maybe do something that's maybe more seasonal in the window, not necessarily a kitchen, but something that maybe draws people's eye. We have actually recently ordered some like storyboards which give a bit of history about one of the brands that we sell, because we don't communicate that history. So that's already in the pipeline, but it's cemented it by seeing that in some of the shops today. And I think you've got to constantly look at how you display and how you edit what you're showing people.
It's that kind of constant thinking and updating as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just one thing before we do tie up, actually, Kenny. Obviously, from a sort of immersive experience, it's quite obvious to sort of see how you can do that in a kitchen showroom. You can host cooking events, or you can be cooking your lunch in the oven and people are coming through. You can bake bread and the scent, make coffee, etc. How do you replicate that in a bathroom studio? That's slightly more difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nowhere near as easy as it would be in a kitchen showroom. We utilise 4D design technology using virtual worlds headsets, so people can literally walk around that bathroom and touch and feel. We also present all of the bathrooms we do through virtual worlds on a 4K TV in the showroom. And it utilises the exact products so they can really see exactly what they're going to do. But also the products that we predominantly design with, providing you meet the customer brief, we do have on display. So people can see and touch the brands that we actually are offering them. But I do agree, it's not as easy in a bathroom showroom that is a kitchen. So that 4D technology and that virtual world is the best tool that we could possibly have.
Back when I first started on kbbreview, I went to a showroom or a couple of showrooms where they had working water displays. They even hosted spa events every month or so, just so that people could actually hire out the use of a certain type of bath so they could feel the effects of the whirlpool. Or has that changed? Is it more difficult to do that now in the showroom? Because as I say, I've seen that less frequent over the years.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we have as a working demonstration product is a smart toilet, which we do.
Which is the customer toilet.
Which is the customer toilet, yeah. So people do use that and they can see the benefits of that product. A lot of showrooms do have working wet displays and you can interchange the handsets and the shower heads. We're not lucky enough to be able to have that facility where we are. I definitely see the value in it. And I think if we were ever to move showroom or do a complete renovation start to finish, I think that's definitely something I would implement. I don't think it's going to help you sell a bathroom.
Okay.
I think it will help you upsell the products. So, for example, if you were going to change from an everyday brand to something more like a premium brand like a Jessie, and there's a product which is significantly more expensive, but it does XXX, you can showcase why that value is there. And by doing that, you will increase the quality of your sale and the value of your sale. But I don't think necessarily help you do the sale, because I do believe that people buy the retailer, not necessarily the product.
Just to finalise then, how's business for you guys at the moment? Obviously, with your retail stores, we'll go back to you guys.
It's good, but it could be busier. I would say if you reflect on the last 15 years, it's harder now than it maybe was 15 years ago, but it's going in the right direction.
Agree with that. We've only been open 3 years, and we definitely seen the last 6 months be the hardest we've seen. I mean, having said that, we're very lucky because we offer a supply of fit and we're quite established in the area now, we have got a little bit of a lead time, which is great. And I think that promotes confidence with new customers that we can't fit it tomorrow, that we have got that lead time. But I think the footfall is definitely increasing, but the quality of that lead is definitely improving as well.
Toma?
I cannot complain. Only one thing, that we need to learn how to juggle between two showrooms now. It's a different game. But I always said everything is in your head. You can always say that, it's not busy, now it's the hard time, and so on. At the same time, you can say, we are really busy, we can do a lot, and so on. And whatever you ask, you will get it. If you will have a good energy, customer will always come through with us and buy. But if you will sit with low energy, thinking, life is bad, people will feel it, they will come and they will want to leave. So we just need to create that circle, like everything is really positive in our heads, and enjoy what we do. And people will buy and we will come. Someone always needs a kitchen or bathroom.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that was Rebecca talking to Kenny, Graham and Toma. Massive thank you to them for taking part. Now, as I said, we have an expert guide on our retail safari today. Ian Scott has actually been a guest on the show before, so I'll include the links to those episodes in the notes. He's been all over the world doing safaris like these, so it was great for us all to spend the day with him in a really quite informal way. I think everyone had a little chat with him at some point, and he's given a lot of time and expertise to everybody. So I'll hand over to me talking to Ian Scott, and then we'll hear from Hetit UK MD Simeon Gabriel. And as I say, he's got some really interesting perspectives from the supplier's point of view. So, really good day.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for doing that. What's your takeaway for today? You do these things all the time, but you've spent the time talking to these guys, and what's your reflections on what kind of things they're interested in and they're looking for, do you think?
I always love safaris like this, where it's not the traditional high street retailer. They're coming in to look at that world, and I love showing people things that aren't their own world, because you won't get inspiration and a point of difference from your competitors. So that was the first thing is, I think they've got the head around the principles. And I know there are some things they will look at and go, well, that won't work in my world. And I understand that. But we deliberately cast the net wide to show a whole mix of things, because you never know which bit will trigger in someone's mind to go, you know what, that really makes sense. And even if they apply it completely differently in their own world, I love the idea that we've just gone, look, here's some of the things that are out there that you could draw inspiration from. And I think, you know, that I had people talking to me about footfall statistics and really trying to understand the mix of digital and physical, because I think the KBB world is very, very physical for learning and experience, but there's a huge growth in the digital because it's a thing that you can then buy from someone else knowing it's the same. So you get a mix of the two. I think the digital side has huge scope to support the physical showroom in the KBB world. And I think that's what I saw. You know, people were interested. I think the lush, maybe it's always lush for me, and seeing that engagement, particularly when Sarah, the store manager, comes in with all this enthusiasm and waving our arms around and talking about it. It's infectious. And you really get a sense of that human aspect. And I say the physical store has three unique aspects. One is the human-to-human contact. Second one is touching and feeling product. And the third one is the peripheral vision, where you come in to look at one thing and get distracted by others, which you can't do online, which is more linear and binary in your search. And I think they've seen a little bit of all of those.
I think it's interesting. We touched on it in our discussion there, the idea of displays, the word that they all use to describe what they do, displays. And actually, if anything's come out of this from me today, it's the idea that there's no such thing, or that the displays don't work anymore. And actually, we need to come up with a separate word, because display sort of implies a museum or an exhibition or something. And
but the interesting thing in the KBB world, the display is actually the product, whereas in Lush or Gymshark, the display is a thing the product is housed in. But when you're showing a kitchen, you're showing the end product. And I said it a couple of times, and I think it resonated with a lot of people. You know, kitchen is a huge investment. I have people talking about an average spend of £50,000 here on a kitchen. Okay. And in that world, people are perhaps less sensitive about the price, but it's still a big considered investment along with car and things like that. And they maybe only happen every 10, 15, 20 years. So they consider there could be multiple visits in the journey of making decisions. But you can see that you can create an inspiration around that experience, and you can approach it from multiple points. We just had a lovely conversation with some of them about the use of social media, and they were talking about influencers. And I was going, well, you were talking about how you're the front people in your business, and the challenge is how do you then dissipate the work to other people when the customer already wants you? So I'm like, don't use influencers. You are the influencer in your business. You are the front person that people engage with and respond to and keep coming back to. You're never going to leave because it's your business. Use yourself. And I think they were hoping to find ways of reducing their workload. And I'm going, I think you need to invest and double down. You know, social media for a lot of sectors, and I'm sure it's similar for yours, is probably the second biggest source of revenue beyond recommendation and referral, because people start journeys. It's so easy to go on social media and explore and learn and be inspired, be it Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you go. It's so easy, and you can tap into one area and you like go down that rabbit hole, and there's just a million options. So you need to be one of those options to capture people's attention and then connect it through.
One of the things that came through strongly for me today as well was the idea of, I suppose you did file it under building community, but the idea that you could get people in that aren't necessarily coming in to buy something.
Yes.
But they are coming in to interact and to engage with the brand and engage with the staff. You know, whether that's something as straightforward as a cafe in the middle of the bike shop, or it's a Bridgerton pop-up that they come on because they just like Bridgerton. It's this idea of getting people in that might pay off further down the line.
Yes.
And I think with the kind of showrooms that we deal with, these aren't showrooms that you would visit unless you are in the 20-year cycle of buying a kitchen. And that, I think, is a total revelation to them.
I think so. And I think there's that, if they're coming in, I need to sell them the kitchen. But you see brands here that are going, just come and hang out. You know, the Rafa store is a great example. You can come and stay in the cafe all day, do your Zoom calls and buy one coffee. They don't care. Just come and use the space. If you're in the space, you're more likely to be inspired by what's in there. And I call it footfall drivers. You know, I was talking about online returns. Online returns make you go back to the shop to return something you don't want, but it tempts you to buy something else because you suddenly see something else and you go, oh, I didn't realize. And you have low footfall in kitchen, bedroom, bathroom showrooms compared to the high street. So anything that gets them in. And so a couple of them were talking about, well, maybe we need to do cooking demonstrations. You know, I've just bought a house and I've inherited a Rayburn and an Arga. And I was sat there for 2 days trying to work out how to make a cup of tea. But the lady who sold us the house said, here's a lady that will come around and teach you how to use the Argo. When I met you at the KBB show, I went on to the Argo stand and they go, no, we do demonstrations. We'll show you how to cook Christmas dinner. It's a wonderful way of building the community, demonstrating the product. They weren't even trying to sell it. I already inherited this thing, and they'll come in and help me learn it. They're going to make no sale out of me whatsoever. I'm not going to buy a new one when there's already 2 in the bloody kitchen. But they were investing in that, understanding the product and how to engage. And you could do cookery lessons, demonstrations, just host dinner parties in there, or use it as a communal space. Have co-branded things where you could bring a company in that's nothing to do with your world, but it's the same target audience. Because sometimes it's not about selling other kitchens and bathrooms and accessories. It's like if your customer will spend 50 grand on a kitchen, what other things would they buy? And you work with them, and what you're doing is reversing into the audience's world, not your industry sector. And that's a great way of drawing people in. It could be a car company, it could be a holiday company, it could be a clothing company. But what it is you both know the same customer and are trying to attract them. So you may make a kitchen sale because they came along to see the clothing company that were in your showroom. And that thinking, because you have a big space with a very low footfall, fill it with people.
Do you find in general when you do these kind of safaris with other retailers, whatever the sector is, that they are quite fixed in their own lane?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter whether it's kitchens or bathrooms or it's training shoes or, or whatever it might be, that this sort of getting out of your own lane is actually much harder than it.
It is. I had toy companies going, I can't wait to go to Hamleys. And I go, I'm not taking you to Hamleys. I had telecoms companies going, why are we going to Lush? It's the smelly bath bomb store. And to this day, 2 years later, they still talk about the experience. And I love doing that because they're focused on their world. They live and breathe their world and their sector day in, day out. So it's no surprise to me that they're going, this is what we do. And I go, that's not a retail safari. That's competitor assessment. And I'm like, if you have a physical space, there's a product in there, your customer comes to you and you persuade them to give you money. It is universal. And 90% of that is the same, no matter what you're selling. And I always say 10% is the uniqueness of your category. You buy a car differently to how you buy a pint of milk, and maybe cultural variation. I was talking about how the displays in Japan are different to the UK, but the other 90% is human behavior. The more you understand that, the rest of it's
I'm not trying to do you out of a job, but what's interesting is anyone can go and do this.
Yeah.
And it's just about having a slightly different mindset and a slightly different set of eyes to go, I'm going to go to these shops and just actually step back and go, what do I like about this? What don't I like? What works?
Retail has the cheapest research because you go into town and walk along the high street. There's some industries, if you're making nuclear submarines, you can't do this. You can't seek inspiration from other submarine, naval, nuclear-based products. But in retail, it's a day out. It's useful to have an expert and guide your services trying to claw back to this. But anyone can go at the weekend. And as I said during my presentation, take your Tuesday morning meeting head off and put your Saturday afternoon family shopping head on. We all shoppers. So go out and take yourself out of the work mode, even if it's a Tuesday or a Friday, and just go and look like you're shopping.
I have been on a nuclear submarine, but that's a story for a different day. Ian, thank you so much for today. It's been absolutely brilliant, and I hope we'll do it again soon.
I'd love to. Thanks so much.
So I'm Simeon Gabriel, Managing Director of Hettich UK, subsidiary of Hettich, which is one of the world's biggest manufacturers of furniture fittings.
Thank you ever so much for helping make the first ever kbbreview retailer safari happen. It's been a really, really insightful day, I feel. Look, what are your reflections from today's experience?
I didn't really know what to expect coming into this. First time I've done anything quite like it. First of all, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think what I wanted was to challenge myself and also challenge maybe other people to just think about retail in a different way. What we saw was a lot of best practice from lots of different types of retail. And I think we can draw a lot of conclusions about what works for specific customer groups. What it all comes down to is understanding the psychology of the people that you're trying to sell to. So as long as you take the time to understand your customer base in enough detail, then you're able to tailor your offer to them to really inspire them to buy from you.
One of the quotes that Ian gave us before we actually did the retail safari was interesting. It was the Nike president who said, retail isn't dead, boring retail is dead. And I think that was one of the biggest things that came out of today for me, was this kind of immersive experience. What did you...
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. And I think one of the other interesting things for me is that there's an awful lot of noise within retail in general about how everything's moving away from physical retail to the internet. And again, the statistics don't support that. Maybe only 25% of transactions are happening online and 75% in physical retail, which again shows that as long as you're in a position where you can inspire people and offer them a proper flow and proper customer journey between a physical and a digital experience, then you should be in a position to persuade them to buy from you. But to the point that the Nike president was making, then it's vitally important that you actually do offer them something interesting and different. And I think in the KBB industry, then it's very much providing them with a service. That's where independent retail can really stand out. You're in a position when you're in front of people to understand their needs, understand their wants, and then tailor what you're offering very specifically to them and make them feel special.
We purposely chose to go to showrooms that are outside of the kitchen and bathroom world to open everybody's minds really into retail in general. Because I think it would have been a different experience, people being critical on how people do it if we'd been to kitchen and bathroom showrooms. But I think what is the same principle across all retail is that the people are what makes that experience.
People are probably sick of me saying this, but people buy from people. You know, one of the standout examples of that today was going into Lush, which is a retailer I probably wouldn't normally go into, but the standard, the staff training really stood out. There was an example of you knew that you were talking to people who were engaging, enthusiastic, happy to be there, and knowledgeable about whatever it was that they were selling. People respond to that. And it doesn't matter whether you're buying something big or small. And in the KBB sector, we've got to be very mindful of the fact that the purchases that we're asking people to make are big purchases. So, you know, if somebody's buying a kitchen, then it's probably the second biggest purchase that they will ever make after the house. What you're actually selling as a retailer is not necessarily that kitchen on that day. You're actually selling them you as a business and you as an individual, as somebody who's going to be able to guide them to make the right decisions and to design something that is appropriate to them and appropriate to their budget and so on and so forth. So it just reminds that you've got to really think about who it is that you're selling to and how you go about selling it. The displays are really important, but at the same time, the people explaining the displays are possibly even more important.
Today was all about that kind of immersive, personalised experience. Certainly for kitchen showrooms, I think there's an obvious takeaway from that, utilising the appliances, the smell, you know, the aromas, and actually it's kind of just making it an inviting sensory experience, isn't it?
Well, first impressions count. And one of the interesting things that you've raised there is people remember things associated with smell more than anything else. So if, for example, you have the smell of freshly baked bread, then people feel at home, people feel comfortable. So you've immediately given them a different sensory experience to if you've just got no smell at all, or some kind of air freshener, or the smell of bleach or whatever. You can affect how people respond to your space. With something that is as emotive as a kitchen, bedroom or bathroom purchase, then you've got to enable the client to actually envisage that product in their home. They've got to feel comfortable with it. And that's a whole range of different things. It's making sure that you've got products that are interesting. It's people who make people feel comfortable. And it's also giving them that vision of how they can employ those products in their own living environment. So it's actually taking that time to really understand the client and what they want and what they need.
Obviously, for independents, the showroom is their biggest asset, isn't it? How can and how do suppliers like Hettich help retailers create these great showroom experiences? What's the role that the supplier plays in that?
But it can be and should be a variety of different things. The reason that we were committed to doing this retail safari today, why I was really interested in it as a concept, was it's very easy for people in any industry to get stuck in a rut and just think in straight lines. And actually inviting people and encouraging people to think outside the box a bit, for them to see best practice from other industries and see how they can employ that in their own industry. For me, that's a really valuable thing. Being able to play that role of saying, well, hang on a second, maybe we can think about this a little bit differently. That's one thing that we can do. That's an intangible thing that we can do and we should be doing. On a more practical level, clearly we design products that inspire people. We actually design products that retailers can put into their showrooms, and they will be the stop and look moment of theatre, the wow moment that retailers are looking for to have the hook that will make people stop and buy. So pure example of that would be the light tower that we introduced into the market last year, which in a showroom really gives that moment of, wow, there's something a little bit different. That's something that's practical, but it's also something that people will want to show off to their friends. Fern Spin that we launched at Hintersum last year and was such a success at Eurocachina this year. There again is an example of something that's a furniture movement that is completely different, totally innovative, nothing else like it on the market. Well, that kind of thing is exactly what retailers are looking for, because that's something that clients will want to show off to their friends.
And again, the word theatre plays a big role there, doesn't it? And that is exactly how showroom retailers, that's the edge they are always going to have over online.
Well, you can touch and feel it. You can have a go yourself. There's no substitute for that. No amount of fancy videos or online influencers is going to be a substitute for the ability for somebody to walk into a showroom and actually have a go themselves.
Yeah. If you could pinpoint anything from today, one standout thing that you saw or experienced, what's your favourite thing that you saw today, really?
For me, it was the way that different businesses had gone about understanding the client base that they were aiming for. If there was one thing that really stood out for me in amongst all of the best practice that we saw, and clearly the most successful of the retail spaces that we saw were basically made by the people that were there. For me, the biggest takeaway was understand your audience. If you do that and you understand the retail psychology of their buying cycles and the journey that they're likely to go on in order to buy, then you will create an environment that will encourage them to buy from you and not from somebody else. It's interesting when you look at a business, for example, like Gymshark, where they've started online and then moved offline, how actually they've gone from being a very comfortable space online to an area where they're learning themselves. It's very common for any size of business to think, oh, well, they must know everything about their environment. And that's often not the case.
No.
And especially when you take somebody out of their where they're comfortable and put them in a different environment, then actually the lessons that they've learnt are not necessarily so pertinent. But what that also brings to bear is that concept that you have to have a customer journey that works both online and offline. This is where an awful lot of businesses go wrong, is that they don't have joined up thinking when it comes to online and offline. So again, it's another big message for retailers. It's make sure that you've got a joined up online and offline experience, because both shop windows are vitally important.
And what about from a supplier perspective? How important is it getting this one-to-one time with retailers?
Oh, it's extremely important. This is why I wanted to do this myself, because it means that I can have conversations with the guys who are at the sharp end, understand what it is that makes them tick, understand their businesses, understand their clients better. Because only by doing that can we as a supplier provide them with the tools that they need to sell to their clients? It's vitally important that we do that. If we don't, then we're too far removed from the market and we're not going to be providing them with relevant solutions.
And is there anything that you saw today that you think, actually, we could be doing more of that to help our retailers?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have certainly got me thinking. Some of the things that we're doing in terms of collaborative marketing already, working with our clients to help them to sell their business. In our DNA, we see ourselves as a success driver of other businesses. That has been the root of our success, and that will continue to be the root of our success. Doing things like we have today is an extremely important part of that, because it enables us to gain the knowledge where we can feed that into our product development, into our marketing plans, into the way that we sell, so that we're actually adding value to other people's businesses. Because if they're successful, we will be successful by default.
That was Simeon Gabriel, and before him, Ian Scott. Massive thank you to both of them for their time and opinion. This whole retail safari experience has been great, actually. Really enjoyed it. I'm so glad we finally got around to doing it. KBB Retail is packed with creativity and initiative, loads of it, but I think, and you've heard a lot from everyone here today, just stepping back and seeing what else is out there away from your own industry can only inspire new ideas. I really recommend it. So thank you to everyone who was here today. Thank you to Hetic for supporting it. Thanks to you for listening. I'm off to catch my train. See you next time.